There we go, the countdown. Okay, guys, so we're continuing with, hello, welcome. We're continuing with Mesilat Yesharim. We're on chapter 3, and we're talking about the elements of vigilance, these elements of what we should do. And we have discussed how it seems that it's the responsibility of the people that have overcome it, those righteous people, to help others. To overcome, so those people who have overcome the Yetzer Hara and are able to fight against it, it's their responsibility to help others. Everybody's got a Yetzer Hara, but some of them give into it and some of them conquer it. We've all got it. Whether you listen to it or not is a different story. That's the difference between a tzaddik and Russia. The Russia listens to his Yetzer Hara and does whatever it says. The tzaddik fights against it. And and how well we fight against it is how good we are. But yes, everybody's got it. So he now wants to illustrate. So in the book, he goes on now to illustrate what he means by this concept of how people should learn from those who have overcome the Yetzer Hara. So it says, to what can this be compared? To a labyrinth, a garden planted for amusement, as is commonly known among the nobility. Let's think about these old stately houses in England and Italy and those places where they plant these hedge mazes for entertainment. So you've got these hedge mazes. The plants are arranged as hedges. Between them are many confusing and interlacing paths, all resembling one another. The goal being to reach a colonnade in the center. Some of these paths are straight. They do in fact reach the colonnade, while others mislead a person and take him further away from it. Someone who's walking along one of the paths, however, cannot possibly see or know whether he is on the right path or misleading one, for they are indistinguishable to the eye of the observer, unless he knows the way by virtue of familiarity and recognition that comes from having really passed through them and reached the goals of the colonnade. Someone already standing on the colonnade can see all the pathways before him and distinguish between the true ones and those that are false. So you've got this maze, and the people who are in it, they can't see over the hedges. So unless they've been through it before and they know how to avoid it, they're not going to be able to reach the middle. Now, somebody standing in the middle, on this pillar, he sees everyone. And what he can do, he's in a position to warn those who are walking, says, this is the way, walk in that way. If you want to reach it, go there. Now, he is willing to believe him will reach the designated spot, whereas he who is unwilling to believe him, preferring to follow his own eyes, will surely remain lost and never reach the center. They're saying, if you've got a guide, somebody standing on the central pillar, says you go here, go there, if you believe him, you trust that guy. He's a trustworthy guy. You'll get to the middle. If you say, I don't trust this guy, I don't believe him, I'm only going to do everything my own way, chances are you're going to end up lost. Yeah, so what he's saying is that if there's somebody there that you can ask questions of, if there's somebody there that can give you guidance, don't ignore it. The person of Torah, but he's saying is now the Torah, now you can sometimes write the Torah is very broad and it's not very detailed. So it says you will love God. What does to love God mean? It says you will put on, let's take one of the famous ones. You will put these words on your arms and upon your head. What words? How do you put them on? Do you go and do you scrape them into your skin as tattoos? Do I nail them on? How do I put them on? The Torah just gives us the bare bones. When it comes to mezuzah, you put these words on your doorpost. Yeah, it is. But the point of what he's saying is, it's all well and fine to say it's in the Torah and it's in the Talmud. 100% it's there. But the practicalities of doing it are not always that obvious. If you have to know how to do something and you have to go ask somebody, great, go ask. If that person is there, it's asking him is not an imposition. Because like we said last time was it's his responsibility and duty to help others. If he's in a position to help, it's his responsibility and duty to do it. So So when you study if you study the Torah and the Talmud, you're going to learn what the laws are. You're not going to learn how to do them. If you go reading the Torah, it doesn't tell you that tefillin are black boxes with 3 compartments and 1 compartment, what goes into each compartment, what we write onto it, how we strap it on. Yes, the Talmud goes into more detail, but still the Talmud is not a manual of a how-to manual. You find a lot of the time the Talmud will going to give you various options. Why? Because the Talmud is giving you a framework on how to make the decisions. How do we know what isn't allowed in Shabbos? That this computer cannot be used on Shabbos. That's not discussed in the Talmud, but the Talmud does discuss the principles of decisions. So the Talmud is the document which tells us how we're going to make the decisions. So you'll find somebody describe it that the Torah is the constitution of the country. It gives these broad brushes of what needs to be done, but no details. The Mishnah is now the actual bills passed by your parliament, which says these are the laws. The Gemara is the case law. This is how we understand the application of the law. And then all the other maforshim, all the other explanations after that, are what we would call the judicial renderings, the judicial decisions based on the case law, on the appellate division of how we practically apply it in everyday life. No, but that's why you've got multiple decisions. So do I put on Rashi Tefillah or do I put on Rabbeinu Tam Tefillah? You go according to the minhag of your community. And if you're at a level that you understand the differences and want to put both on, go for it. But the point is, you can say, I've got these 2 sets of tefillin, which ones do I use? You're going to ask the person who knows. How do I do it? And so the same principle applies here. I want to overcome my Yetzer Hara. The person who's standing there and can give me guidance, I should listen to them. Are you relying on by virtue of position, by virtue of reputation? This is why you'll find in Reishis Chochmah, when he's talking about Kedusha, and he spends, it must be close to a full chapter, discussing how vile is the hypocrite and the flatterer. Because they mislead people, they don't do it themselves, they mislead people. And he says, how much worse can you be? Because we can't know. A person can be portraying themselves one way and they're going home and doing something completely different. We've got no way to know. You don't know. You're hoping. The person that coming, you're hoping. You can't be 100% certain. We don't know. We can't read people's minds. You just look at their actions, their words, their deeds, how they portray themselves, and if they follow what they say. Obviously, we can see a dichotomy between words and actions. We don't believe the person. But if there seems to be a synchronicity or harmony between words and actions, then hopefully that is a trustworthy person. Let's continue with what he says here. He's going to explain this example, because this is also true regarding our matter. He who has not yet subjugated his Yetzer is in the midst of the paths, unable to distinguish between them. But those who rule over the Yetzer have already reached the colonnade and left the paths, and see all them clearly before their eyes, are able to counsel him who is willing to listen. And it is in them that we must put our trust. And what counsel do they offer us? Come, let us enter into a reckoning. Let us reckon the accounts of the world. For they have already tried, they have already seen, and they have come to realize that this alone is the right path by which man may reach the good that he seeks. There is none other. Now, because in summary then, a person who should constantly at all times in periods set aside for meditation, ponder the true course the man must follow according to the demands of the Torah. After this, he should reflect upon whether or not his actions have followed this course. For by doing so, it will surely become easier to cleanse himself of all the evil and straighten all his ways. As the verse states, survey the course of your feet and let all your ways be steadfast. Quoting Mishlei Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 26. And another verse states, let us search and examine our ways and turn back to the Lord. This is from Eicha, chapter 3, verse 40. And you say, how do we know? So we know for a fact that there have been people in the past that have heavily misled others. heavily misled others. One of the most famous examples is of the Frankists. They followed a rabbi called Frank. He said, it says in the Talmud that the person who overcomes his yetzer and repents stands in a place of Kohen Gadol cannot reach. Because a repentant sinner can no longer do that. So what we must do is do every sin to overcome it so we can reach that level of holiness. And they engage in the most debauched, disgusting, when I say debauched, I mean it in the worst possible way. You can think of a bad act, they did it. Obviously, that is the wrong person. People followed him. His movement didn't last long. It was one of these normal charismatic cults. People like Shabbatai Tzvi, the false Messiah, who was not long before this. And because of Shabbatai Tzvi, the Ramchal himself was almost put into Cherem. But because they were scared, he was another Shabbatai Tzvi, misleading people. So we've got to be, so yes, we want to find that person who can guide us and put us on the correct path. But we also have to have enough discernment that we look into our own ways and compare it to what the Torah says. You know, if somebody says something blatantly wrong, to recognize that it's blatantly wrong. That is part of it, is that we have to examine our deeds. We have to come and look, and we have to be vigilant of what we're doing to take that cheshbon, to take that accounting, to see where we're standing. That is 100% correct. But the reality is, particularly in the modern world, that we can't spend our day, it would be fantastic to spend our days surrounded by righteous people 100% of the time. The reality is it's not that way. Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zichron Tzedek Livrocha, recognized this. So you'll find in the 60s and 70s, people still used to sit Kaddish for somebody who married out, or somebody converted. And Rav Moshe Feinstein turned around and said, we can't treat people today the same way as we did when we were in a shtetl. When we were living in shtetl, people were surrounded by Jewish environment, Jewish thought, Jewish living. It was who they were. For somebody to go against that was a willful act, putting aside everything they'd learned, every norm they learned, everything their families. You've got radio, you've got adverts. Now, even the fact that you come from a frum community doesn't stop you from being continuously bombarded by secular ideas, by other religions, by temptation. You come from a frum community, you go to university, you're confronted with non-Jews, you go to the workplace, the people you work with are non-Jewish. This is not the same environment. The person today who goes off the path, the person today who marries out, who gets involved with a non-Jew, who converts, is in the category of somebody, of a child that does not have understanding and discernment to turn themselves away. And we should rather hold the door open for them to come back and return, because we retain that love in them and the ability for them to do it, than to cut it and say goodbye. And because of that, do you actually know anybody who sat Shiva for somebody that's married out today? But it's exceptionally rare. No, you don't. Because you want to hold the door open for them to repent and come back. If they die without repenting, they can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery. We don't say Shiva for them. We don't say Kaddish for them. Then, unfortunately, they've died and they've never repented. But by the same token, they could be influenced to leave Judaism. We want to hold the door open to influence them to come back to Judaism. We cannot, if a person walks into Shul, we cannot give him an aliyah. We can't count him in a minyan. No. If they've converted to another religion, we cannot count them in a minyan. Reformed Jews are a very difficult situation because we don't know if they're Jewish or not. How many Reformed Jews today come from marriages where there was an invalid conversion? And you can't know. Unfortunately, today we don't know who in Reform is or isn't Jewish. So if they can prove that they are Jewish, we'll count them in a minyan and call them up. I did it in the South. We needed him. He came to me and it was very confrontational. So I said, I'm Reform. So great. Where did your parents get married? Oxford Shul. Great. You're Jewish. It's a difficult one, but the thing is that at least in South Africa, we know Reform actually insists on having a bris, and the brises they do are generally conform to halacha. In America, it is very problematic. Because in America today, they don't insist, Reform does not insist on circumcision. So, which means that a Reformed Jew in a shul in America walking in an Orthodox shul cannot assume he's Jewish. And if he can show he's Jewish, cannot show that he's circumcised. He cannot assume he's circumcised. That's a very difficult situation. Okay, guys, that's not the topic. Let's continue with Mesilat Yesharim. Okay, so
now your son's wife having to pass away, and you could only say him because
okay, so now so the person's son marries, his son's Jewish, his wife's not Jewish. At what point can you or can you not say Kaddish for a non-Jew? Because now it's not the issue. What we're saying is where are you not allowed to say Kaddish for a Jew is when they convert to another religion. When he converts to another religion. Not when he's intermarried. An intermarried person we can still say Kaddish for. It's when he converts to another religion. So the person died whilst living as a Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or Baha'i or it doesn't matter what. He converted to another religion. That person is outside of the Jewish community. And we learn that from the Torah. We learn it from the Torah when it comes to talking about who can and cannot bring the Korban Pesach. In Shmot, Exodus, for those who know what Shmot is, chapter 12, verse 43, it says the Benaicha cannot bring the Korban Pesach. And who's the Benaicha? Onkelos, in his translation, is very clear. Zehu HaMeshumad. This is the apostate. And you'll find various places that refers to worshippers of to other gods as Al Nochrim, as strange gods. The Benaicha is the Jew who has taken on a god, some other god, and just like a Jew who converts, a non-Jew converts to Judaism, becomes a son or daughter of Abraham and Sarah, the Jew converts to another religion, becomes a son or daughter of that religion, and they are cut off from the Jewish people. They do retain a connection to Judaism. Strictly speaking, they could still marry a Jew as not intermarriage. No, they just say the marriage without converting is still a valid halachic marriage because they are Jewish from that point. But the Jewish, from the point of view that when they die and they get judged by the heavenly court, they're judged as an apostate Jew and punished with kares. Their souls cut off from God. So even if a Jew were to convert to Islam, and normal people who follow Islam are righteous non-Jews. Islam conforms completely to the 7 Noachite laws. The person who follows Islam and does not engage, okay, let's be very clear, does not engage in terrorism, does not engage but is in one of the forms of Islam which conforms to the 7 Noachite laws, is a righteous non-Jew. But the same Jew doing exactly the same as that person is an apostate and has his soul cut off from God. Because he is a Jew who has converted. So merely intermarrying, I stay Jewish but married to a non-Jew does not cut me off. Yes, I'm sinning, and yes, I'm going to have to account for that in the world to come. But it's not the same category as a Jew converted to another religion. It's a very controversial one, and this interpretation of saying that can convert to Islam is a very marginal one. It was exactly the same thing as I said to the Jews when they're faced with the Inquisition. Pretend you're converting, and that is why they changed. That is why they changed the Kol Nidre to future tense instead of past tense. So it automatically nullified any vow they took to make any false conversion. They could walk around the next day, they can come back into Shul, they never converted. Rambam never ever gave anyone any permission to convert away from Judaism. Rambam was very clear that Islam is not valid for Jews. Anybody trying to interpret his letter to say that a Jew can be both Jewish and a Muslim at the same time is completely misrepresenting what Rambam said and is an apicorus. And I will say that without fear of a contradiction to anybody that listens to this on the internet. No, the whole idea was that the next day you converted back. You never converted in the first place. The Talmud itself says you can lie to somebody coming to threaten your life to save your life. If a thief comes into your place and says, do you have money? You're completely allowed to say, no, I don't, even though you've got a chest full of coins underneath your bed. If somebody is threatening your life, there's absolutely no requirement that you have to be honest with them. The thing where you said with the Geratay Mamim, where it is different, where people were not, even where Jews were told not to even pretend to convert to Christianity, is because with Christianity you've got the issue of the Shittuf, the partnership deity. And everybody agrees that a partnership deity is forbidden to Jews. It's not forbidden to us, it's forbidden to Jews. So even pretending to take it on is a Chilul Hashem. It is a take on idol worship and should die before doing that. Whereas what Rambam was saying is that because Islam is a pure monotheistic faith, we can at least pretend. It's not a complete abrogation of God to say it, but the only intent is to save your life so you can continue to live as a Jew. So you can say, so I can walk out the door and I can go and escape and I can continue living as a Jew afterwards. But under no circumstances did Rambam ever give anybody any permission to live as a Muslim and a Jew at the same time. As soon as your threat to your life is over, as soon as you've walked out that door, escaped to somewhere, you can sit in Rambam's own actions. When faced with the choice of converting to Islam, he fled. The Almohadis took over Spain.